Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite Ayurvedic topics called Marma Points, or Vital Energy Points. My name is John Immel. I'm today's speaker, and I'm the director of Joyful Belly Ayurveda. So why do I love Marma? Well, the first reason is that Marma are simple. Everyone can do it. Marma is helpful and practical. And what are the benefits of Marma? Well, Marma points, when you press them, help release tension, and they stimulate circulation in a particular part of your body, and that helps your body self-regulate. It brings awareness to a particular point in your body, so your body can clear imbalances, and your body can restore regular function to an area. The parts of your body that you ignore, those are the parts where imbalances tend to stay fixed, or they tend not to get cleared. So if you ignore a part of your body, it's not necessarily that part of your body is going to get sick or have a problem. But if that part of your body has a problem, then you're not going to notice. You're not going to fix it. And your body might not notice either. Well, stimulation of Marma points helps your body clear those forgotten imbalances. Actually, stimulating Marma points offer a range of potential physiological and psychological benefits. Marma points are also, however, very vulnerable parts of your body. They're actually parts of your body that were used in martial arts to injure a person. And so the Marma points may be more sensitive to pain. Injury to those areas can even prove fatal. My favorite reason of all that I've given so far for loving Marma points is that through Marma points, you develop an understanding of how different bodily systems are interrelated. You might learn, for example, that pressing a point on your temple can affect your stomach. And that's very interesting to me, to learn how different parts of our body are interrelated. And so when you press Marma points, you stimulate new awareness of your body, and you can actually even diagnose and find imbalances by pressing different Marma points. Because if you have an imbalance, certain Marma points will be more sensitive. All right, in this lecture, you will learn an introduction to Marma points. You'll learn a little bit about their history, some of the benefits of Marma therapy, beyond what I've just said, how practitioners do Marma therapy, and an overview of some specific Marma points and their benefits. What you won't learn in this lecture is how to be an expert in Marma. Marma is an entire branch of Ayurveda, and it requires deeper study. And this lecture is just the beginning. It's just a doorway. It's going to help you get started. All right, so again, what are Marma? I've called them vital energy points, but that's a little bit of a vague topic. And anytime I hear the word energy, I'm always wondering, what are you talking about? So what are Marma specifically? Well, they're these points that are located at specific sites on your body, usually at the intersection between bones or joints or arteries or tendons. And there are many of them. In fact, I will show you a few on my body right here, on your chin, right here between your nose, on the sides of your nose. There's another point here where the third eye is, on the sides of the eyes, on the temple. There are several on the top of the head. There are many Marma points throughout your body, in addition to those few. But usually at each Marma point, there's just something that happens there. It could be an intersection between bones, joints, arteries, or tendons. Or it could be just a place where you have some sensation, or a place that tends to get affected by different states that you might be in. Well, what about the classics? What do the classics say? Sushruta Samhita says, every Marma should be understood as a junction or meeting place of the 5 organic principles of ligaments, veins, muscles, bones, and joints. Well, some of the points I just showed you don't exactly fit that definition, but they're included in the list of Marma points. But there's your classical definition. So Marma points are comparable to acupuncture or acupressure points in traditional Chinese medicine. Yeah, great. Just to mention, Marmani is the plural form of the word Marma. Great. What else does Sushruta say about Marma? That Marma points are the primary seats of prana, tejas, and ojas in the body, as well as sattva, rajas, and tamas. If you follow that sattva, rajas, tamas model, which is a bit of a spiritual model in Sankhya philosophy or yoga, and I don't know if Buddhism has it. I should check that. But sattva, rajas, tamas is a kind of spiritual way of assessing the mind in Sankhya and yoga. So, all right, well, let's talk a little bit. What does it mean to say that Marma is the primary seat of prana, tejas, and ojas in the body? What does that even mean? Well, there's this concept of, in traditional Chinese medicine, that qi gets stuck in certain areas of your body. And I said before that Marma points can be points where we tend to forget, or also points where we have increased sensation. And so there's this sense there that that prana or chi can get obstructed there, or that they are flowing a lot in that area, or something's going on with it in that area. And so when you stimulate the point, you bring renewed awareness to that area, you bring better blood flow, or you regularize blood flow, and it creates a shift in your body and a harmonizing effect as tension is released. Right? What are the benefits of massage? Well, it depends on what sicknesses you have, right? You go to a massage therapist, really the same massage can heal different people in different ways. And that is true for Marma too. It kind of clears the problem, even if the problems have different nature in different people. So I said before that Marma, certain trauma to certain Marma points can cause death. You know, there's Marma points along your trachea, your heart is a Marma point, etc. And that's some of these points, because of the danger of striking them, they're forbidden to strike in martial arts, for example. So, yeah. There are 107 major Marma points in Ayurveda, but we shouldn't limit ourselves to those. We can probably discover, but these are the canonical ones. And you see the list of them here. Some are classified by muscles and joints, etc. You can always pause any of these slides, by the way, if you want to read some more of the information on them. If I'm going a little too quickly, here's a map of different Marma. This doesn't look like all 107 though. This looks like some of your major ones. Maybe this is your, I don't know. It looks like this could be your top 50 or top 35 or something. But there's a short list there, and just try pressing all of these. You know, try pressing your different points. Find them, press them, see what kind of sensations you have there when you press on those points, and that will teach you about it. In some ways, Marma is a self-taught practice. History of Marma points. Well, the word Marma itself comes from the Sanskrit Mri, meaning death. And note, by the way, in Latin that Mri also means death. Like words like moribund or mortality and Marma, they kind of have some similar sounds, right? Well, Sanskrit and Latin come from the same language originally, Proto-Indo-European. So there are similarities between Sanskrit and Latin. And the word Marma means death. It can also mean hidden or secret. And it was a practice known to kings and warriors in ancient times. There was an ancient martial art called Kalari that first discovered the power of Marma points, and they were used in battle to increase lethal effect on enemies. And this picture here looks like two people fighting. A really old picture of that. I wonder exactly where that photo comes from. It looks almost like Egyptian or something to me, but it's probably Sanskrit. I'm just wondering what that text is on that left side of the photo there. It almost looks like hieroglyphics or something, but maybe these photos are Sanskrit or Indian origin. Vedic times. All right. Well, anyway, there are 12 specific points which when hit can cause instant death, and they used to design armor to protect those points. So that's how it started, and it was also used historically to treat injured fighters. So they would massage specific Marma points related to certain injuries. And then from there, the word of the Marma points healing potential spread, and Ayurvedic physicians started to learn about it. And some of these Kalari masters were hired to teach the technique in local hospitals. And then eventually Marma became mandatory training as part of an Ayurveda education. And it's still a respected part of Ayurveda. And the theory of it is also, as everyone knows, has been highly popularized by Chinese medicine in the form of acupuncture and acupressure. So, what are some of the ways to use Marma points? Well, you can use them to help make Ayurveda assessment. If a Marma point is sensitive or painful, it means that the prana is, quote, stuck there. And I'm going to try to unpack those terms a little bit, because I know they're a little bit vague terms. What does it mean that prana is stuck somewhere? So I'll explain a little bit of that later more. But yeah, if there's an imbalance to the point, then the point is going to be sensitive or painful. So that can be used diagnostically. And some points are associated with different doshas, etc. So the information that you get when a point is sensitive tells you a lot. So Vata, by the way, there's tend to be pain on initial pressure but disappears. Pitta is more tender when the pressure is applied, and Kapha is tender when deep pressure is applied. As I said before, Marma can be used to maintain balance because it has a clearing or regulatory effect. When you press the Marma, it stimulates circulation, and so whether it's hot, whether you have an imbalance of hot or cold, it can bring you back to center. So use of Marma can be incorporated as part of your lifestyle approach. Pressing on your few favorite Marma. What a great thing to figure out. I love to, with herbs, I tried all the herbs that I thought were good for me, and then I settled on 3 or 4 that I thought were very good. And it's the same thing with Marma. Find those 3, 4, 5 points that are particularly important for your health, and then press them every now and then, and that can help you maintain health. One of the things I love about Marma is that it's minimally invasive. Whenever you take an herb, you can help. Herbs are very helpful. Herbs are wonderful, but herbs contain phytochemicals. And those phytochemicals that the herbs have in them are strong enough to override your body's natural processes. In fact, that's why we take the herb, to override something going on in our body to help heal it. Our body isn't always perfect. Sometimes when we're getting an inflammation response, we need to reduce inflammation. And so we'll override our natural body intelligence with herbs or pharmaceuticals. But by the very fact that these chemicals are strong enough to override our natural bodily functions, herbs are harsher than food in general, and they have to be detoxed. Those chemicals have to be detoxed by the liver-kidney system, just like pharmaceuticals. Now, pharmaceuticals are much more concentrated, so they will hurt your liver-kidney much sooner, but it's nevertheless important to always remember that as helpful as herbs are, they're also mildly toxic. And so you don't want to overuse herbs for many decades together. And some practitioners or herbalists, they love herbs so much that they kind of can take too many herbs and weaken their liver and kidneys. So regular use of herbs is very safe, but there is a point where it becomes overuse, where regular use becomes overuse, and that we have to always watch out for. And Marma is a good backup because Marma shifts the body in many of the same ways that herbs do, but they're minimally invasive and entirely non-toxic. So, yeah. So Marma is great because it's simple, less invasive. You don't need to buy it either. The Marma is already on your body. The marma in the pelvic floor, lower abdomen, and thigh region relates to vata. Pitta marma can be found in the navel region, around the middle of the belly, and throughout the body. There are other points all over that are good for either pacifying or reducing pitta or stimulating the other doshas, etc. Kapha in the chest, nose, throat, sinus, head region. And there's some example marma points listed there. And here's a list of marma points by the dhatus. And you can also have marma points for each of the sotamsi. Again, pause these slides if you want to look these up. So, marma points can improve circulation of nutrients to organs. They can stimulate digestion. They can prevent accumulation of wastes. They can be used in pain management, especially with headaches. I think marma points, people when they get a headache naturally touch their head. They'll go like this, they'll press, they'll rub their eyes, they'll do all kinds of different motions. And that's basically marma theory is what they're doing. They may not be pressing a specific point, but they're doing exactly what we press marma for. And I think we should include those motions alongside the study of these classical marma points because it's really application of the same theory. Marma points can be, can you be used to enhance mental well-being and even awareness? It's said to be the gateway to thoughts, feelings, and emotions. We talk a lot about how the body is related to the mind and the mind is related to the body. And on some level, the study of marma is the study of that connection between the body and the mind. The specific marma points can be said to be points where the body and mind connect. And, that requires a lot of explanation and, to make sense. There's a little bit of vagueness in my speech here, even as I'm talking, but I'm going to leave it at that. Maybe I'll explain a little bit more as we go, but I just want to leave you with that thought that some parts of your body are areas where your nervous system affects your body and where your body affects your nervous system. That's undeniable. And the marma kind of captures those places. So marma are profound in their ability to improve body awareness and health, but also simple. I also don't want to oversell marma too. You'll see on popular books about marma or literature that they're touted as something miraculous or that they can cause radical alchemical healing and all these other kinds of language. I think that marma are simply put very useful, very natural. If you put your hand to your forehead when thinking, or if you say, put your hand on your chest and say, here I am, you're referencing how we use different points of our body in different ways, mentally, physically, etc. And there's just a way to formalize that natural tendency that we have. Different movements, different spots on our body evoke different feelings and have different effects. And why not study that formally? That's what marma is. And so it's not a miraculous thing, although it's a profound thing, and you can uncover lots of things about your body that you didn't know that are really helpful. So why not? Like I said, I love marma, and we don't need to oversell it for marma to be great. And there we go. Rubbing your temples or squeezing the bridge of your nose when you have a headache. These are natural motions, and they're natural application of marma theory. So. Let me turn off this video capture here so that it doesn't block the text too much. All right. So, like I said, I simply enjoy studying the effects of pressing on different areas of my body. I love studying the effect of how though pressing a marma point might increase or decrease gunas somewhere in my body. I love to sit and contemplate a marma point to try to figure out its pharmacological effects or its gunas. And I find marma points to be similar to herbs in many ways. Like they cause these subtle shifts in your body that you can feel, and at the same time, the effects may be temporary, may be long lasting, depending. And they're just ways to aid and help your body. So, let me turn my video back on and I can point to some of these. Let's see. Yeah, I mentioned the point near my temples here that relieves mental stress. I'll often just press this point. There's points on the top of the head where when you press them, they just help you relax and let go if you need to let go. I mean, I can let go pretty easily of some things, and so I try not to press that point too much too, right? You can overdo that. A point midway between the pubic bone and the belly button, I find relieves anxiety. I mean, you can kind of like cuddle that area below your belly button there, and it feels warm. Even just feeling the warmth of your hand there is very nurturing. A point that's often sensitive to me is where, let's see if I can lift up enough, is where my ribs connect to my sternum. Those that juncture there. Those are some Marma points that are typically sensitive for me. Well, working at a computer perhaps, or just as a general tendency, I can carry some chest tension. So those points tend to be a little sensitive, and I like to press them, and I do press them often. Either side of the nose helps clear, can help clear your nose, but also I notice that it increases steadiness. It's kind of, without really aggravating pitta too much. Anyway, there's lots of fun effects near different Marma points, and I do recommend Marma points to my clients on occasion, and for different reasons, usually digestive. Some of the Marma around digestive points I think are helpful. Pressing the point between the anus and the tailbone, there's like 2 inches or so between the tailbone and the anus. You press that point, it can help with elimination. The points on either side of the belly button, about 2 inches lateral, are helpful for stimulating bowel movement. And yeah, I recommend researching. I'll tell my clients, check out these points. These points might be helpful for you. And I tell them to research it. So, yeah. Now, one thing to note, as I mentioned, if a person has imbalance of hot or imbalance of cold, when you press that point, it's going to release that heat or release that cold. So you might notice an increase of a certain guna while you are a client when you press a point, and it may be different from someone else who presses the exact same point. And so it's important not to draw a hard and fast conclusion about the gunas at that particular location, that you allow for the fact that different people may have different experiences at the same point. Marma is sometimes accompanies massage in an Ayurvedic spa treatment. Or you may have gone to a massage therapist and they use some acupressure points too. And a practitioner might also use a series of Marma points to help you relax. And Dr. Lad used to do that. He had this special sequence, and you can Google it, that from my personal experience was very effective, and I found was very enjoyable. All right, what's the difference between marmas and chakras? Because some of the language I've used about marmas and some of the language people use about chakras are very similar. So what's the difference? Well, let's just go into the word chakra a little bit and what it is. Here's a picture of the chakras, and notice these images associated with the chakras. These images are actually not part of the classical tradition of chakras, but these images are associated with different elements. And people map certain elements onto certain chakras, and that's why they map those images there. But the chakras are not actually associated with elements in the classical tradition. Anyway, that's a little bit newer. But what is a chakra in the first place? The word chakra literally means wheel or circle, and they are, simply put, locations where you feel your body more than others, where you have more awareness or more sensation at these points. And, there's this tendency, again, to make them very mystical, but I think this definition really captures what it is and is a very useful, practical definition. Your heart is a part of your body that you feel more than other parts. Your your head, your solar plexus, your anus area around your butt, or your sexual and reproductive organs. I mean, you just can feel those organs more than other parts of your body, more than, say, your shoulder, for example. No, people talk about the feelings they have in their heart all the time, but no one says, oh, I have, I was going to say cold shoulder, but then I was like, oh, people do actually talk about a cold shoulder. So yeah, there's some feeling in the shoulder too, right? Those kinds of sayings, cold shoulder, or you stab me in the back, or whatever, reflect how we feel emotions physically in our body, and how we express ourselves emotionally with our body. But the heart is clearly one where you feel that more than, say, your bicep or your elbow or something like that. And yeah. So chakras are sort of locus or centers where you feel your body more. And they're also areas where you might have increased mental processing as well. We talk about the gut brain and the heart brain and the brain itself, and those three organs have chakras associated with them, right? There's the third eye is a chakra, and that's kind of attached to your brain, and the heart is attached to your heart brain. Well, you have a ton of nerves around your heart. You have a ton of nerves in your gut. A third of your nervous system is actually in your gut. And so we process our instincts in our gut, or we process connection with other people in our heart. And so those chakras are areas where we do have significant processing of emotions. Different chakras may be located in nerve centers like the solar plexus as well. And chakras really are the sort of main places where there is a strong connection between your body and mind. So, yeah, you might have, this is also relatively newer, that chakras are associated with different emotional tendencies, that like the idea that your root chakra is associated with feelings of survival and things like that. I think there's some truth to that, but I do want to disclose that that's newer innovations. Carl Jung, a modern psychologist, did a lot of work mapping this stuff out, and that's only from a few decades ago. That's not ancient Sanskrit where there's emotions that are associated with a specific chakra. It's just important to note that there's been a lot of development in that over the last century, that's not all classical. Even some of the modern teachers in India are using some of this more later development information. And it's just important to recognize that that's not necessarily traditional, even if it's valuable. There's been recent stuff associating chakras with endocrine glands and all that kind of thing. And that's just all newer stuff. A lot of it is based on like doctrine of similarity, that earth element goes along with this kind of color or this kind of emotion, and so that's associated with the root chakra. But classically, what do the ancient Sanskrit texts say about chakras? That they're centers of awareness. That's part of the classical definition. But how were they used? Yogis were told to put certain mantras, deities, and images associated with the elements, the 5 elements, in each chakra. And there were many different chakra systems, not just the 7th chakra, but there were like 15 chakra systems, etc. And they were used for different meditation lineages and different meditation practices for different results. And I mentioned already that the idea that a particular emotion being associated with a particular chakra was invented by Carl Jung, a popular Western psychologist in the 1950s. So, but these days, when you open up textbooks, they use the 7 chakra system, which was developed in the 1500s, not developed then, but became the most popular one in the 1500s. So that being about 500 years ago, and they're listed here. The root chakra being located at the base of the spine, and then the sacral plexus, the sacral chakra associated with the sexual reproductive organs, and then the solar plexus, Manipura chakra, the heart chakra, throat, third eye, and then the crown. Oh, where did that one go? Oh, there we go. Yeah, the crown chakra. And the crown chakra is, people associate that with transcendence, right? It's almost like going out of the body. So there's some spiritual angles or different ways that the chakras are used spiritually. And so you really want to make sure that you study those spiritual philosophies and understand them and understand the implications and all that, so that you know how to use this stuff in a way that's gonna actually benefit you. Because the crown chakra, for example, is called the bliss chakra, but it's a particular theory of bliss in Eastern spirituality or Sankhya spirituality, yoga spirituality, and we just want to make sure that that resonates with us, that like, yeah, we actually think that is blissful. So, just check those things out, and just know what it is that you're getting into there. So chakras can become blocked from a number of reasons. And that term blocked is a kind of vague term. What does it mean that your heart is blocked? Well, that's left for interpretation. But tension, trauma, stress, fear, etc. can interrupt mental processing or create musculoskeletal tension in the area of a chakra, and that can disturb it. You could be really anxious in your belly, and that's going to disturb the second and third chakras. So similar to pressing a marma point, yoga asana and meditation, it can be used to activate the chakra or unwind that tension, trauma, and stress and fear, and get things flowing again. Again, there's a lot of overlap with spiritual practices here, and so depending upon what spiritual tradition or religion you come from, you want to really just take a look and know what it is that you're doing in this area. So chakras have become a really popular part of yoga spirituality, and then there's a lot of esoteric mystical practices linked to it, such as the raising of kundalini energy and energetic healings and all that kind of stuff. So some people are not going to want to get involved in that. Others will. And, but it's beyond the scope of Ayurveda to really get into all that with Marma. But no, just that stuff is there. So Marma points. We discussed just a little bit about chakras. So how are Marma points similar? How are not Marma points different from chakras? Well, Marma points are far more numerous and located throughout the body, not just along the spine. And Marma points can be seen as little chakras or tiny chakras. But, unlike chakras, Marmas are not necessarily places of heightened self-awareness. They can be. So the definition doesn't fit exactly. Marmas can be located where we forget to feel, but also people forget to feel in their chakras themselves. So, they're similar. They're similar. So here are some Marma points that are associated with the location of chakras used in the 7 chakra system. Here's a little more information around that, which you can pause the slide and check it out. Guda, Marma, Basti Marma, Nabi, Hridaya, etc. I want to go a little more into channels and meridians because this kind of language relates to this study of Marma. And meridians are really in Chinese medicine. And here's a picture of the lung meridian. They're pathways. Meridians are pathways where the vital energy or qi is claimed to flow. And people mean different things when they say qi. Some people mean it in a spiritual way. I'm going to explain what I think is a kind of more biomedical approach to that. And then these acupuncture points or acupressure points or Marma points or whatever are kind of on these pathways. So Chinese medicine has 12 meridians associated with specific organs. Ayurveda uses language that's similar to meridians. They're called channels, although we don't talk about how Marma is located on a channel itself. But the Sanskrit word for channel is called nadi, and a nadi is a little srota. A srota is also a word for channel, or srota is really a word for like river. And you can think of nadis are to srotas the way a stream is to a river. So a stream is a little river, and a nadi is a little srotas, or a little srotamsi. So, all right, what do we mean? What's a sort of biomedical interpretation of the word energy, chi, or prana that's flowing through these channels? And what is a channel anyway, right? So, channels can be physical structures like intestines or blood vessels or nerves. They can be a connection of bones, right? Like a channel from your foot to your hip through your bone, or a series of connecting muscles, etc. Those can be channels. In other cases, the channel is more subtle. We may talk about a channel in Ayurveda where if you dissected a cadaver, you would see nothing there. Well, what do we mean then, right? Well, in that case, channel should be interpreted as a relationship between different parts. So there are relationships between your hips and your shoulders, for example. Depending upon the placement of your hips, that's going to determine how your body is going to maintain its equilibrium and stability and balance. So it's going to change where your shoulders are. So your shoulders and your hips are connected. I mean, they're connected by your spine, but they're also connected in many ways. All of your organs are connected too. And so that is those relationships can be called channels in Ayurveda. So channel is a kind of umbrella term, and it can be vague, and sometimes it can be used in a mystical way too. So we just want to make sure that when we're using that word, that we know exactly what it is we're talking about, and can use it practically, and that it's not just assumed that the meaning is understood or that the meaning has been communicated. So again, about energy centers and let's see. A similar question. No, this slide looks a little bit messed up here. Okay, so even for some Marma points, as I mentioned earlier in the lecture, there are physical underlying structures like the crossing of two arteries, or joints between bones, etc. But other Marma points, there's no physical structure underneath it. And so why is that Marma located there? The reason for that location may be a little more mysterious, but it may be experienced, right? Just because we can't explain something doesn't mean that we haven't had an authentic experience there. That's valid. It's maybe subjective, and it even may be shared by many other people, but it's still real, right? And that's important, that even that sometimes we have experiences where we can't just analyze it biochemically. So, So we need tools and language to describe these experiences and describe these relationships. And sometimes the word energy is used to describe an experience, and sometimes these relationships are, we might use the word channel or meridian to describe those. Anyway, we can study those relationships formally, and that's useful. So what are some ways... what do we mean sometimes by energy? Energy levels can describe a person's wakefulness, right? So we might call energy, if we describe energy, we might be describing how much fatigue we have, right? Oh, I have lots of energy, or I have very little energy today. The term energy can be used to discuss metabolism. Um, the flow of energy, well, that could be the movement of blood. Movement of blood is a transfer of energy. Blood carries nutrients and oxygens, which are the raw material of feeling energetic, right? If you have plenty of nutrients, plenty of oxygen, if it can get into your cell and your mitochondria are functioning well, then you're going to have lots of energy and you won't be fatigued. So the movement of blood does involve a transfer of energy. Even a impulse traveling down a nerve is a movement of energy. It's a kind of transfer of cause and effect. My brain tells my arm move, and then my arm does it. Well, there was something I had to get from my brain to my arm to trigger the movement, and that's a transfer or a movement of energy, on some level. A movement of a muscle is a movement of energy. A change in thought can be a change in the quality of the mind, and that's sometimes the word energy is used to describe that, right? If a person's went from feeling very lovey-dovey to feeling angry, this person might say, "Oh, your energy is totally changed," right? And that's that can be like a new agey to talk that way. But nevertheless, that's a way that people use the word energy. And so it's important to know how people are using that word. Energetic healing, people use that word too. Oh, I had this energetic healing. It was a total energetic healing, etc. So what does that mean? Well, it could mean a spiritual shift. It could in your beliefs that has provided stress relief. Like, oh yeah, I just had this newfound ability to feel gratitude, and that has just provided lots of relief for me. A person might say, oh, I had an energetic healing, and that's what they might be referring to. A change in how you feel might be considered an energetic healing. It could also, in Ayurveda, refer to balancing the gunas. Right? Like, oh, my cold quality is no longer out of balance. And so it's a change in my energy, right? In religious use, an energetic healing can also mean a supernatural or spiritual healing. As in, the Bible talks about all these... when Jesus walked the earth, that there were people who would like touch his cloak and be healed of blindness, or they were paralyzed and then they could stand up. And there's all of these around the world, there's all this different cultures that attest to spiritual or supernatural healings as well. Just by sheer number, we have to assume that that's happening, that the miracles do happen. And so those can be sometimes called energetic healings too, but maybe that's more specific to call those spiritual healings, or even supernatural healings, or miraculous healings. So, I know we're talking about Marma in this lecture, but these are some of the terms and vocabulary that often get referenced when people are talking about Marma. And so it's important that we just understand what people mean and really map this out. So I talked earlier how prana or chi can get stuck in a Marma point, and how the smooth flow of chi or prana is a desirable thing, right? Because when things are flowing smoothly, the energy is moving without obstruction. So again, like this is an umbrella term to describe a range of phenomena. Let's talk about some actual examples of that. So the flow of chi or prana can be obstructed by a tense muscle, right? If my muscle's all tense, then things are not flowing and moving, right? Even blood is not flowing. Anything that obstructs the flow of blood, if you have a huge inflammation or swelling somewhere, that's going to disrupt flow of blood. Or even if your posture is bad, it's going to obstruct flow of circulation in your body, and that could cause a buildup of chi or prana or blood in one area and a deficiency in another area. Something that causes mental tension can block your flow of thoughts, and if something that disrupts a nerve impulse in your body, etc. Those are all things that can disrupt the quote flow. And again, that word flow is a really umbrella term. Well, because there's a lot of spirituality and philosophy involved in these Marma points, even, and I don't want to limit that to philosophy of India or even in China. When you pray in the West, you put your hands together and you're touching different points there. There are all kinds of different ways that people use their body and various spiritual traditions in order to pray. In order to achieve different spiritual effects. So in the West, when you pray, you kind of put your hands on your heart area and you bring your attention to that area. That's almost it's kind of like Marma therapy, pressing on your heart. And in Indian spirituality, you might focus on the crown chakra as your path towards spiritual transformation or bliss. And so, in the West, the bliss may be more heart related. In Indian, more crown chakra related, or different lineages. And in Indian spirituality, may use different chakras to access spiritual. Anyway, there's just a range of possibilities there, and so using some of these points because it has a psychological effect. You really want to know the philosophy behind it, so that you just know what effects you're getting. Yeah. A new practitioner can innocently use the crown chakra point if they hear, oh, the crown chakra is associated with spiritual bliss. Well, I'm going to press the Marma point there because I have a client that's really unhappy and I want my client to be happy, right? So then they'll say, oh yeah, we'll press this crown chakra point every day. But if that client is a Vata deranged client, right? Or if that client is constantly kind of vacating their body or dissociates really easily, stimulation of the crown chakra would aggravate that tendency, right? Because the crown chakra is a point that, kind of encourages transcendence. And so if you're a Vata aggravated person, you just may not want to press that point. And it may not be blissful for you, but for someone else, it may be blissful. And some people or some traditions see the whole body or all of the chakras operating together as the path towards spiritual bliss. Anyway, we need to know what's going on there if we're going to use some of these more spiritually related points. All right, there we go. There's some, okay, there we go. That's it. How to use Marma points? Well, first thing is, who can use Marma points? Generally, you need a license to touch in order to legally practice Marma on your clients. It is a form of body work. So check your local laws, ensure that it is within your scope of practice, even to advise clients about Marma. There's some talk that in New Jersey that you can't even teach people about acupressure points. We tried to find a reference to that. We couldn't, but I just want to throw it out there that there may be laws governing your use of Marma. So check that out. And really it's a whole branch of Ayurveda. So you need more training than just this lecture, but it is possible to do some basic Marma on yourself. Gentle Marma can be performed daily. You could be sitting in a comfortable position. You could be upright. You could be standing up. I sometimes press Marma points while I'm in the middle of talking. In a lecture, for example. You can press Marma. It's frequently done during Abhyanga or oil massage in a relaxed, warm environment. And you could use Marma any time of day. But generally, you do Marma points first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. So you start with light pressure to the chosen Marma point, and you can increase to firmer pressure depending on your dosha and depending on the location of the point. Kapha types generally more firm pressure, Vata light, Pitta medium, and you press the point for about 1 to 2 minutes. You can take deep, slow breaths while pressing, and that brings awareness to the point. And there's this language that people use called breathing into the point, and you mindfully put your attention in that area of the point, and you try to release tension in that area. and and in a way, you try to use your breath to press against your finger from the inside out. And I know that's a little bit metaphorical or poetic, but the fact is when you breathe, your chest expands and contracts, and that displaces fluids and things all over your body. Now, you may not be able to displace flesh to the point where you can feel it up in your forehead, but you definitely, while breathing, can notice how the breath changes your posture, and that can even change how you're standing on your feet, or your feet may move with the breath as it pushes against your legs and things like that. Anyway, if you're relaxed, this is what you're trying to accomplish, right? You're trying to press the point and relax all the tension in that area. But if you're relaxed, that breath can cause slight movement in the area where you're pressing, and that's a sign that the tension has been released and the blood is starting to flow. You can also put essential oils on the Marma point to stimulate it. And there's some essential oils by dosha. All right, so that was a basic introduction to Marma theory and some of the languaging around it, and how to do some Marma points. But let's talk about some specific Marma points. And I want to mention that while I'm talking about these points, you may want to just stop the lecture and verify some of these effects. So just pause, hit the pause button, press the point, and see how it resonates. Well, this first point, Stapani Marma, is a head point. We'll go through some head points first, and that's related to the third eye. It affects the sinuses, the frontal vein, and I noticed when I press that point that it helps restore my focus and equilibrium. Sometimes if I have a sinus infection, it can help me function despite pressure in my sinuses. It's said to bring awareness to Tarpaka Kapha. And that calms the mind, balances emotions, and relieves some stress. It can help with relieving headaches. And people naturally touch that point when they have a headache. It improves concentration, and it stimulates memory. Also can benefit the eyes and nose. And there are some other functions that are listed, but we're not exactly sure how it would do that. Like it says, it facilitates optimal function of the pituitary and pineal gland in some modern Marma texts. And I don't know exactly how it does that. I can't explain it. So I'm just putting that in a separate category because it's a little bit harder to understand how it would have that effect. But maybe it's just an experience thing. Maybe if I sat with that point a little longer, I would be able to notice it. Here's that point that I pressed a few times earlier in the lecture on the sides of in the temple area, Utshepa Marma, and just above the temple on either side of the head. And this point is primarily made up of ligaments and tendons, and it strongly pacifies pitta, relieves tension around the eyes, calms the mind, also relieves headaches. And sources say that it relieves stomach pain and decreases acidity as well. That it can benefit the ears, eyes, teeth, and face. Now note, your jaw is actually connected up there, which you can feel as you open and close your mouth. The kind of jaw hinge is really close by there. And so it affects your jaw muscles and relieves tension on the face and jaw. Which can influence your speech. It reduces emotional stress, calms the mind. I think I mentioned that already. Avarta Marma. These are located on the eyebrows. And that's a bone joint there, or a bone point. It benefits the eyes, enhances the circulation in the eyes, relieving headaches. It's very relaxing point too, to just massage your eyebrows. Just try that if you like. Just pause the video for a minute, and helps with releasing suppressed emotions. There's a point that's on the top of the head, and it's right where the different skull bones meet, because your skull isn't just one bone, but it's several bones stitched together. And so I think the next slide is a map of that. There you go. So here's the different bones, and where those bones meet at the top of your head is a Marma point. And when you press it, it's also very relaxing. All the points in the head I find quite relaxing. So, yeah. And in the previous slide, we talked about how the third eye point regulates the pituitary gland. Here, Mordini or Adipati. Do I have a map of that one? Adipati. There you go. There's a side view. You may want to look these up to find exactly where they, a good photo of exactly where they are, because I think that these photos don't exactly show you here, unfortunately. But pressing those points at the top of the head can optimize function of pranavasrotas and aid in coordination, aid in concentration, relieve headaches. I've learned a lot about how I carry different tension in my head and stuff by pressing the points. So just check it out. Check it out. Again, I'm not trying to, get to the point where you guys are experts at this stuff. I just want to say a little bit about what's out there, and that way you can pursue that knowledge if you want. Hridaya means heart, and it's a point that's primarily related to blood vessels, the blood vessels of the heart, and it's considered the root of rasavasrotas and pranavasrotas, the blood plasma, and the prana meaning sort of that chi or life energy. It brings awareness to your cardiac function and heart rate. You can feel your heart rate when you press that point. It improves coronary circulation as the muscles around that area relax, and it can help maintain optimal function of the lungs and airways, and also calm the mind. I mean, nearly all the points I feel like calm the mind, balance emotion, relieve stress. There are some points, I noticed the ones around my mouth, above and below the mouth, are not calming to me, but kind of stimulate and aggravate pitta. So not all the points calm the mind. Nabi is in the belly button. And the belly button is this essential place for fetal development. It's where nourishment reaches the baby through the placenta. And so, it's considered a nurturing point. And even when you put your hand on your belly, you can feel that nurturing. And there's a lot of esoteric philosophy and spirituality about the belly button. It's considered to be the origin of all blood vessels and all the 10,000 nadis coming out of your belly button, and all. Again, that gets into the more spiritual side of things. But stimulating that point can kindle Agni, stimulate digestion, regulate Samana Vayu or the peristalsis. It can, in general, regulate functions of abdominal organs. Vasti or Basti Marma, that means the urinary bladder. You're basically pressing on your bladder there, and it's in the lower part of the abdomen in the pelvic region, primarily made up of ligaments, fibrous tissue, and hard tissue. So you're going to use that to help your bladder and circulation and function of the pelvic organs. Indrabasti Marma. There's 4 of these, and one in each arm and one in each leg. Basically in the forearm for the arm where the muscles come together, and in the leg where the calf muscles come together, the gastrocnemius muscles. And this point was a point that was very aggravated for me. And once I learned this point and pressed it, I was like, oh my goodness, this point's very sensitive. And so I researched the point and realized and found out actually that my colon was really imbalanced. And it was one of the ways that I used Marma diagnostically on myself. And so once I realized that this point was painful because of imbalanced electrolytes and because of colon issues, I took steps to fix those, and I had a lot of relief in those points, and I had a lot of relief in general because the problems in those areas were creating problems in several areas of my body. So because it's related to the colon and the colon's related to the mind, there's just these points can have mental effects. Indra Vasti can have mental effects as well. So, and even to this day, I find points, and sometimes I'll go to an acupuncturist and they'll show me a bunch of points. I'm like, whoa, that point is painful. And then I'll remember that point and press it every now and then. So, yeah. Janu Marma, located at the knee joint. Golfa at the ankle, said to regulate kidney function, improve circulation to feet, relieve pain locally. So yeah, those are some of the main points there. And again, this lecture today is one of my favorite topics in Ayurveda. Pressing Marma points, so simple and can be very helpful. And very practical, very natural, something that everybody does already, but why not formalize the study of it? So I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the basic theory and a few of the main points. I would say if you want to, get into this, read more about it and learn more about it because there's a lot to learn and maybe even check out some Chinese medicine in this area too. Just to learn some different approaches to the use of Marma. So thank you for listening, and see you again.